Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A Chinese citizen recently died after getting a Chinese vaccine. Authorities are reportedly trying to keep his death low-key. They even contacted his daughter and told her to keep her father's death to herself. NTD's Don Ma has more.
Ms. Liu's father died just a few hours after getting a Chinese vaccine. After his death, the Chinese authorities reportedly contacted Ms. Liu and asked her to keep the matter private and let the situation pass quietly. Ms. Liu yielded to the state. Ms. Liu's father was 59 and worked in Zhangjiagang City in China's eastern coastal Jiangsu province. A person with knowledge of the matter tells us Liu acquiesced because she was afraid.
She was very scared, afraid that the regime would give her trouble. She was very worried. I talked to the middleman again today, and the middleman said she reluctantly yielded to the state and will keep the matter private.
We also contacted Ms. Liu to find out what exactly happened, but it seems she was reluctant to tell us anything.
你父亲现在处于什么状况？已经火化了吗？
对呀，我这边已经处理好了，我不想再谈这个事情了。你说的比较有点晚了。
Some people say in China they're being forced to get inoculated against their will. Netizens revealed their experience on Chinese social media platform Weibo, saying, "My company is forcing me to get vaccinated. If I don't, they won't let me go to work." One netizen says a health center in China's Fujian province mandates employees and their families to get vaccinated. If not, salaries will be suspended. Despite being coerced to getting inoculated, authorities sometimes make citizens sign a waiver that declares they got the shot voluntarily. This is reportedly what happened to Liu's father and could have made her fear that the state would cause her trouble. Beijing wants to attain a high vaccination rate across China, and this appears to be just one of the means of achieving these ends. Don Ma, NTD News.
A Chinese Olympic silver medalist says her trainer systematically doped her. It comes amid increasing speculation about the gender of some Chinese athletes competing at the Tokyo Games.
An Olympic swimmer tells the Epoch Times that her trainers put her on a doping regimen under orders from China's communist authorities. Huang Xiaomin was the first Chinese swimmer to win a medal in the Olympics. She took silver in Seoul in 1988. 2 years before, she had already earned a reputation as the best female swimmer in Asia for the breaststroke. Huang is now South Korea's national swimming team's coach. 2020 Tokyo is the first time we're seeing openly transgender athletes in the Olympics. Some Chinese athletes are also catching people's eyes. They're in women's teams, but they look in many ways like men. Though Chinese officials explain that they're physically women, many don't agree. The phenomenon reminds Huang of the time she had to take performance-enhancing drugs, or PEDs. She said it was not a new practice.
We began to use PEDs from the 80s. Forbidden drugs is their umbrella term. It's actually doping.
She said the intake of PEDs was ordered by the authorities and arranged by her coach.
It's determined by training stages, what and how to take the PEDs. At every stage, the intake of those drugs is in accordance with the training cycles.
Huang said her coach began to dope her after she got a gold medal in the Asian Games. Their eyes were set on the Olympics. At the time, she was the most promising, ranking among the top few in the world.
They hoped I could get a medal. From then on, they began to systematically train me and feed me with those PEDs. That's how they planned it.
She said her coach not only arranged the intake, but also taught her how to avoid doping violations.
They knew it's forbidden, but they would tell me to stop taking them from a certain time before the match, so that it wouldn't trigger a doping violation.
Her menstruation became irregular, her voice turned coarse, and her Adam's apple became more visible. Her physical condition deteriorated fast, and she had to quit her career at age 24. She suffered from heart problems and severe pains for a long time afterwards.
At the best time of your athletic life, you say you want to quit. That's absolutely impossible. They would say the party needs you, the country needs you, so you must continue. What could I do? Nothing. There is nothing you can do in a society like that.
Understanding the suffering and the struggle, she says she feels sorry for Chinese athletes.
Today, we're releasing a new special report on Epoch TV. Today, we look at a looming threat facing the United States, one that could put America's fundamental freedoms at risk. That threat is brewing not on our home soil, but on a body of water that's an ocean away, the South China Sea. Chen Xiaonong is an expert on China's economy and military affairs. He says the threat has to do with Beijing's nuclear capabilities.
中共的核导弹 The Chinese Communist Party's nuclear missiles have a range of over 6,000 miles, which means if it wants to launch these missiles from the South China Sea and hit the west coast of the United States, it can do it any time.
On these missiles are warheads more powerful than atomic bombs, strong enough to wipe out hundreds of thousands of people in minutes. And if Beijing mounts those missiles on nuclear submarines, they can travel even further.
If China's nuclear submarines leave the South China Sea, bypass the Bashi Channel, and reach the Midway Atoll, from there China's nuclear missiles can directly hit America's east coast.
And Beijing appears to be dropping hints about its capability. This April, the Chinese Navy commissioned a new submarine. It's reportedly armed with the country's most powerful nuclear missile.
And on this submarine's emblem is one of China's nuclear missiles flying from a submarine towards the continental United States.
The Chinese media reports describe the emblem as having a deep meaning, adding that it manifests the mission and team spirit of this submarine. Across the ocean, the U.S. maintains a robust nuclear arsenal. It's home to more warheads than China and has the ability to track Chinese submarines, preventing them from delivering nuclear attacks. The problem is, once China's submarines dive into the deep ocean, they become extremely difficult for the U.S. to track. Once that's in place, a surprise attack on America becomes possible. Chen says this is why the South China Sea is vitally important for the Chinese Communist Party.
The Chinese Communist Party's nuclear submarines can find safety in the South China Sea. Waters there can be as deep as 10,000 feet, deep enough that American satellites can't effectively detect China's nuclear submarines there. In the past, China's nuclear submarines mainly operated in the Yellow Sea and the East Sea. Waters there are very shallow, less than 300 feet, so American jets and satellites can easily detect the submarines if they hide there.
So the South China Sea is critical for China's nuclear strike ability. But here's the kicker. The South China Sea is not under China's control. Countries like Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam also lay claim to parts of the South China Sea. Despite that, Beijing says most of the area falls within its territory, indicated by what's called China's 9-dash line. Not only that, Beijing is already occupying the territory, in particular the coral reefs there. But how can a country occupy waters? 7 years ago, these reefs were just collections of rock. Over the years, China has been piling sand onto these reefs, turning them into artificial islands. Later, the regime built airstrips, bunkers, and missile silos on them, effectively militarizing them. The effort has largely succeeded, with China having militarized the Paracel Islands in the west and the Spratlys in the south. It also controls the Scarborough Shoal in the east, even though that area hasn't been militarized. All of these represent choke points in the South China Sea.
We've seen it. There's no denying it. We saw those islands that were just small little sand spots in the South China Sea are now major naval bases. As I said, 3 of them, Subi Reef, Mischief Reef, and Fiery Cross Reef, are the size of Pearl Harbor or larger.
Vanessa says Beijing has militarized some of these islands without even firing a single shot.
So they're there. They've got it. They're in possession. Their warships are sailing more often, larger, have more firepower than anybody else in that region. And so they're basically challenging anybody to take it from them.
Critics say by gradually taking control of the South China Sea, Beijing's ultimate goal is to turn it into a bastion, a safe net for its nuclear submarines. That would mean the challenge for the U.S. is to get inside that bastion and be able to sink those submarines.
So that in the South China Sea, Beijing can launch nuclear attacks against the U.S. at any time, and it'd be hard for American military to guard against that.
How much control does China really have over the South China Sea? And how is the U.S. responding? To watch the full report, click the link in the description below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.